Looks like we're live here finally. All right. And then now I don't know if you guys can see, if everyone can see, but one of the things you're going to need to do. So hey Facebook, God bless you. We're live here, and we're going to get into some things today with our millionaire mindset session that we're having. And the millionaire mindset session is let me just move some things out of the way. But the millionaire mindset session is a session that we put together so that we could I could share some things regarding regarding, again, exactly what it says, the millionaire mindset. But what does the millionaire mindset mean? And what millionaire mindset actually means is really what as I get a chance to share the things that that we do on a daily basis that help us to generate millions of dollars a year in revenue. And so from a mindset perspective, there are some things, not just from an operational a day-to-day task perspective, but there are also things that we implement on a daily basis as it relates to our mindset and the way we think, the way we approach different things. And so we're going to get into that. If you are someone that is looking to have 7 or multiple 7 figures in income, so at some point, then these will be things that hopefully will be a big benefit to you. In most cases, it will, but not only will it be a benefit just from a learning perspective, but there will also be things that you can actually implement that can 10x what you're currently doing. And so, so those are some of the things we're going to get into. Now, April, are you? And I don't know if you guys are able to. You should be. But we may have some of our existing students that are here. They have the ability also to jump into, if you give them the link, not inside of YouTube, but inside of the platform, you could actually give them the link to their to the Zoom session so that they could actually jump in if they'd like. All right, instead of having to view it on YouTube. So one of the things that I'm gonna get into is, and I don't know if you guys can also see who's on the chat, but if there's anyone in the chat, then you can actually see them and let them know that you've placed it inside the chat. But for now, I guess we should be good. So prayerfully, everyone can hear me and see me okay. If you can, just put a message inside the chat that you can hear us okay, that you can see us okay, and we'll just get into it. So a couple of things that I'm going to get into today that I think is really going to be very, very relevant to growing your $1 million. Well, in this case, what I'll talk about is really like a $1 million portfolio with Airbnb. And so, and we'll just use that, not just from a portfolio perspective, but we'll also talk about it from just a general cash flow perspective. Maybe I won't be using this whiteboard because I don't see our, yeah. Here they go. Nah. Yeah, these are permanent markers that won't go over too well. So, all right, well, we won't be using the whiteboard today. That'll be next week. So one of the reasons also I want to just apologize a little bit because one of the reasons why we were delayed, okay, I see it. We were delayed is because I'm not in my normal setting either. So if you guys know me, then you already know that that my children have had children, right? So I've had 2 grandchildren born in the last 3 weeks, and so we've been doing a lot of traveling, and right now we're back in Florida from New York, and we've been traveling because my daughter and my son, they just had their child a week ago today, and so that's been a blessing, and because of that, like, I'm not in my normal setting, so I don't, like, getting set up with everything has been, it's been a little bit more involved than normal. I'm just kind of jumping and doing some things. So let's see. So a couple things I want to so when we look at growing $1 million portfolio, there's, can you guys see that? I don't think that's, you can see that very well. Let's bring it up further, closer. I don't know if you can see that. Is that April, Angel? Can you guys see that at all?
Coach Jim.
Yes or no?
No.
No, you can't see it. All right, well, let's try this. Can you see that? No.
It's vague. No.
Still can't see it.
Yep.
No. All right, maybe it's because this thing is over. No, I can't see it. All right, well, there we go. So we won't do that either. All right. Well, I'll talk about it without y'all being able to see it. But when we're looking at growing $1 million portfolio, from a cash flow perspective, here's something that I can do. Hold on. I'm not. Yeah, it's
If
just.
you move it closer to the camera, you can see it. There's a glare.
Yeah, I know, but I looked at the glare and it's not really working. So
You can see that.
You can. You can't. Not really. You can see that.
Yeah.
Are you just saying that because you're trying to?
No, I can see it.
You could see that.
It's visible now.
It's visible now.
Yes.
It is so hot in here. All right. So this video is we're going live. So all right, might as well just get into it. All right, so they said they could see it, so you can't see my head. It's horrible. You guys can really see that for real?
Yes, we can see it, Coach Jim.
All right, can you see the blue and the red, or just the blue?
For me, just the red.
Just the red. All
yes.
Right. Okay. All right, let me see if you can see black. How about this one? Can you see that?
One moment, please. There's a delay in the YouTube.
You see that?
Yes. Clear.
Clear?
Yes.
All right. So we'll stick with black then. So everyone, forgive me. So growing $1 million portfolio. So growing $1 million portfolio. So let me tell you what that means and what it looks like, right? Because and the benefits to doing it. Because when we say, like, the way we help our Wealth B&B member partners, what we do is we grow their $1 million portfolio in 3 to 6 months. But what a $1 million portfolio means, and I don't mean to chuckle, but today I had a conversation with someone that I guess there's some things I kind of took for granted when I said that, as far as the understanding. And what I mean is, what I took for granted is that people understand, like, from a real estate perspective. So when I'm talking to people about growing $1 million portfolio, I'm talking about it from a real estate perspective and what that looks like. And so $1 million portfolio, what it doesn't mean is that you're if we do that in 3 to 6 months, what it doesn't mean is that in 3 to 6 months, you're going to have $1 million. Now, I kind of assumed, because again, I've been doing real estate for 30 plus years, and I'm always, when I'm talking about real estate, like, I just talk about it like I know this stuff like the back of my hand, and I think everybody else understands it as well. But it doesn't mean you're going to have $1 million in 3 to 6 months. What it means is that you're going to have $1 million in cash flow per year. That's what it means. So $1 million in cash flow per year is what happens when we grow $1 million portfolio for you. And what that also means is that you're going to have, typically, your profit margins are going to be somewhere between let me change that. One, your profit margins will be 100 to 200 times, right? So you're going to have a 100 to 200 times profit margin, right? So the reason being is because the way we do it is, when you're picking up properties, the properties that we pick up, they're always going to be based on formula. And formula means that from whatever you're going to be, whatever you're paying in rent, because we're leasing everything, we're not buying. So whatever you're paying in rent, so let's say you're paying let's say you're paying $2,000 a month in rent. Then that means if you're paying $2,000 per month in rent, that means you're going to be generating anywhere from $4,000 to $6,000 in revenue or cash flow. And your profit is going to be $2,000 to $6,000 in, $2,000 to $4,000 in profit. So you're going to be keeping That means you're going to equals profit. So you're going to be keeping at least a minimum of what you're paying in rent is what you're also going to be keeping in your pocket. So you're going to be making as much, if not twice as much, than the owner is actually going to be making. Right? So, and then that's how we're able to generate or create financial independence and freedom so quickly. And that's the big benefit. So let me explain to you the benefits. So what that means is for $1 million in revenue, you're going to have a profit margin of somewhere between let's see, anywhere from it's 325. So anywhere from 675, so anywhere from 500K to 675K in profit. That's what that means. Right? Now, here's the big benefit though. You guys want to take a snapshot of that? You can take a snapshot of it. But we're recording it, and if you're here, or if you haven't, or if you have to leave early, and you're one of our students, you could always come back to this video. But we're also going to load it up into the platform. So let me flip this over. Can I? I haven't used this one before because it's not mine, but I'm assuming that I can flip it. And if I can, all right, good. Cool. All right, cool. All right, cool. Let's see what happens. All right, cool. All right, I flipped it. All right, it worked. Cool. All right. Love it when a plan comes together. So now, what's the benefit? Here's the big benefit though. And I like to talk about this benefit because like this is the same thing that like I had one of our wealth B&B students on today, member partners on today, and one of the things like they're in the process, they're actually working, but they also have a course, right? They do training, but they actually work a full-time job because the training they haven't gone through our program to help Wealth B&B VIP program to build their $1 million training platform. That's what they're going to be doing next as well. But their training right now, I believe, generates for them like, I don't know, a few $1,000s a month. Not a whole lot. Why? Because they actually spend 14 hours a day between commute and working because they're a manager for a national retail corporation, and so, or grocery corporation, and they spend 14 hours a day. So they commute an hour and a half, and then so that commute is 3 hours a day, and then they spend 11 hours or something like that, like working, and they make just under 6 figures a year. Now, because like for me, and they've been doing it for so many years, like, and I say so many, like over 20 years. Like for me, it's hard to hear that. Like, I'm glad that they're like now they're in Wealth B&B and we're building that $1 million portfolio. But here's the benefit. Like, it's hard, but it's exciting because like I used to be in that situation when I was a bank vice president. I didn't have an hour and a half commute. My commute was only well, after I finished our training, where I was actually commuting, but I wasn't even commuting. Like when my wife was pregnant with our first 2 children, I was gone. Like I was training out of state or 3 or 4 hours away. So I wasn't even home while my majority of the time my wife was pregnant with our first 2 children. Like I literally was on the highway when she was in labor. I made it to the hospital in time for her to give birth and for me to be in the labor, the delivery room with her. But I mean, I was making 6 figures a year. It was my dream. That was 20 something years ago, just over 20 years ago. It was my dream job. I mean, I did commercial lending, was lending millions and millions of dollars, you know, to I didn't lend anything less than $1 million when I lent money to a company. And so my clients, you know, were business people throughout the area who had multi-million-dollar companies. And my job as a relationship manager, as a commercial lender, was to develop those relationships and understand the business so that I understood what my risks were, and I was able to mitigate the bank's risks. So I learned the companies, I learned the clients, and I was able to make the recommendations if, you know, regarding should we give them the money or not. So we would go out, play golf, go to dinner, you know, I'd go through, we do all kinds of things, you know, we go to, you know, part of the activities of getting to knowing each other was, you know, I'd be paying for most of this stuff, right? With the bank's card. And, you know, we go to outings, sporting events and things, and we always had our corporate booths. And so our corporate suites inside of, you know, the arenas or whatever, and we do that. It was always pretty cool, right? However, I spent probably 10 plus hours a day doing that away from my family. And all I made was $100,000 a year with bonuses. So when you look at the numbers from a bonus perspective, if you really break it down from a numbers perspective, what is that? $100,000 a year? I used to know what that number was because I always wanted to get there. So I used to know exactly what it was, like to the dollar, how much I needed to generate to accomplish that. So, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to just calculate it real quick. So 100,000, you guys probably know, but $100,000 a year is really. So $100,000 a year is $1,923.08 per week equals 100K. $1,923 a week equals 100K. So that equals, what that equaled for me was 10 hours per day times, now it was typically only Monday through Friday, but there were events that happened on Saturday, and sometimes I did that stuff too. So we could say 10, let's say 12 hours for me, since if we want to add those events that didn't happen every day, but they happen. I did stuff on the weekends all the time. So let's say 13 hours a day. So 13 hours a day. No. 3, 6, 9, no. Let's say, so let's say 11 hours a day. We'll just do that. All right. So 11 hours a day is what what it took me to make $100,000 or 11 hours a day times 5, which is 55 hours per week. So it took me 55 hours to make $1,900. Now, I want y'all to know. Well, let's take a look at this. 55 hours a week to make $1,900.23 per week. 55 hours away from my kids, away from my wife. And by the way, much of that time I was also in the Army Reserves too. And while I was in the Army, I would spend as an officer, I was also spending, because we didn't just do things on the weekends. As an officer, I had to go in during the week too at times. So there were days that I also spent, like I don't even want to do the calculation. It kind of like it's messing up my brain. Like I don't even but I don't know, maybe let's say 10 hours per week, not including when I had to go away for a few weeks out of the year. Right. So I was literally, and what did I make? I can't remember what I made as an officer on a monthly basis when I was doing it part-time this way. Was I making, I don't know, maybe 3,000, I think $3,000 a month, $3,000 or $4,000 a month, something like that. So if I was making 3,000 a month, then I also made, that was about equals 36,000 a year. And so that's 65 hours out of a week of my life that I was giving to corporate America. Now, there was a method to my madness. So like, I wasn't just doing that for the money. I didn't do this for the money, and I didn't do bank officer for the money. Like I didn't do either of those for the money. I became an officer because when I went to the military, I wanted to do that while I was in college so that it would leave me more opportunities after I graduated. If I wanted, once I which I never graduated, but once I graduated, there'd be more opportunities if I needed them. That's why I went into the Army. I went in, I became a banker because when I started buying real estate 30 some odd years ago, I did it because my mom called me and told me she was dying when I was in my 3rd year of college. And I didn't know what to do. I had 2 younger siblings that I knew that I would have to take care of if mom passed, and I was 4 or 5 hours away at college. And so I had to figure out, what am I going to do to be able to take care of them? And so I saw infomercial on TV, Carlton Sheets. I said that, you know, if nothing else, at least I can get a house this way. How to buy a property, no money down. I can get a house so I could have a roof over our heads, and then I could figure the rest out. Well, after I finally got my first one using Carlton's methods, then I realized, man, like I could do this more than just to get a house. I can do this, maybe become a real estate investor, and maybe not, and maybe be able to really change my life forever. So that's what I did. The reason I became a bank officer, though, is once I got the first property, I decided to change how I was doing it and go traditional. Carlton had some non-traditional ways of getting properties without needing banks or without needing by using seller finance and different banking strategies. But I was able to do that. It took me a year to get my first one, but I had no credit. I had no job when I started. I had no experience. I was young. And I was told that if in order to get more properties, I'm going to need to get a job so that I can borrow money. So I said, well, if I'm going to get a job, I might as well get a job doing something that's going to benefit me long term. And I said, well, banking, if I'm going to own a business or if I'm going to need to access money, I need to learn about money. So why not get a job in banking? And I started, my first job was as a teller, started as a part-time teller. I would never go full-time with them. I was with them for a few years, a couple years as a teller, a couple years as a mortgage servicer. No, not a couple years, another year as a mortgage servicer, but they were both part-time positions. And then I got the management training position. And then that's when they started paying me more, and I was traveling and things to learn to prepare myself for middle and upper level management. And so that's why I became a bank officer, and then I actually went full time. Why? Because I knew that would be the training that that if I got access to that, it was going to prepare me for being able to set myself up for my business at some point in the future, being an owner of a lot of real estate, a multi-million-dollar real estate investment company. That's what my goal always was. And the same thing with the Army. I started off enlisted. I eventually became a drill sergeant, and I did that because it was a little bit more money, but it was also a way for me to learn leadership. However, after becoming a drill sergeant, I was only a drill sergeant for a very short time, because I realized that this level of leadership is still not the level that I want. It was still just, it was like middle management leadership that I was learning as a drill sergeant. I wanted CEO level management. So I went to OCS so that I could get that type of training to understand how to run companies, how to run people, how to run finance. I was a finance officer in the military, and I also get paid to do less, actually, right? So and that's the whole thing: get paid to do less. It doesn't mean less is being done. Actually, more is being done. More gets done. It's just that you're not the one doing it all. So now, instead of you spending 55 hours, you might only be spending, in this case, again, maybe 10 hours to get 55 hours worth of work done, because you got everybody else doing the stuff. Right? So I learned like that's how that stuff works. The reason why we're able to generate millions and millions of dollars now, because I definitely don't work as hard as I was working there to make $136,000 a year, but I make 50 times more. And a lot more is getting done. Well, I won't say a lot more is getting done. I mean, the military and the bank, they do a lot. So I'm not going to say that, but we don't need to do all of that. We're still making we'll probably do, like, we're on track now to doing about $10 million a year. So, and that's actually been increasing as well. Last year we only did 2. Now we're on track to do 10. So why though? I told you all of that for a reason. Because as I was talking about my brother's story, who is putting in right now, he's putting in, what did I say, 14 hours a week, a day. So 14 hours a day to make $100,000. What is that? So 14 hours times, I don't know if that's 6 days a week or 5. Let's give him the benefit of the doubt. Let's say it's 5. So 14 hours times 5 equals 70 hours. Ouch. And he's married. I'm not sure. Yeah, believe there's kids. I'm not sure. I can't remember. Yeah, there's children. So 70 hours to make $100,000. Now, here's the thing. The reason why, like, I cringe when I think about that though, and I said earlier, it kind of hurts, is because I know, like, the talent that he has. It's kind of like me, like how I broke out of corporate America, how I got out. I'll explain that a little bit too. But what he did, like, he has as I mentioned, he does training now. He trains people in the healthcare space, in the health and fitness space. And he makes a few $1,000s a month with his training. The way he does his training is part-time because he's putting 70 hours and giving it to them. But if he could generate $3,000 a month with a few hours that he has to give to his full-time thing, if he is sharp, like, and when I tell you he's sharp, like, he's sharp. Some of y'all may know him, some of y'all won't, but he's sharp. And his wife, just a whole nother level of smart when it comes to finance and stuff, right? So if he could now just eliminate him having to put in 70 hours a week to make $1,923.80 a week, then guess what? Like, those hours that he's putting into his training in his academy, like, that's the same. Like, when I started my academy, from 0. And in order for me to start it though, I had to get out of, not corporate America, because I had been out of corporate America already, 15 years, 14 years, 13 years, something like that. And 14, 15 years. So, but I was now in a different space. I was in the space that I dreamed of. Like, the reason why I said I became a bank officer, the reason I became an army officer is because I wanted to prepare myself for my multi-million-dollar real estate investment company. Well, guess what? I had accomplished that. I started my company after about 10 years of working for the bank. Well, let me change that. I started my company before I actually started working for the bank, but I went in a different direction. I went traditional instead of non-traditional, like I started in the beginning. After about 9 years of borrowing money and doing it the long way, then so I had to get a job, and I was working for the bank and all this stuff, giving them all my time, and I was doing it the long way. I had debt. I had just a few $100s a month, a couple $100s a month in cash flow for every property. And like, after 9 years, I realized if I keep doing this, ain't no way, like, it's going to take me forever. Not because I was borrowing money, But because my return on investment was so small, it was only a couple $100 per property. A few $100 per property. That's the difference between what I showed you here from a cash flow perspective and a few $100 per property. Because in this case, when you're making $500,000, when you got $500,000 to $675,000 a year in profit, this is profit. Now you're at what? That's anywhere from $40,000 to $60,000, $40,000 to $55,000, $56,000, $57,000 a month in profit. Like you can live off of that. Like you could do some things off of that. That's pretty cool. But when you're doing it just a couple $100 a month, how many properties does that take? Like this only typically takes about 20 places to get there. This takes anywhere from 15, maybe 10, 40. Yeah, about anywhere from 15 to 20 places, depending on how we mix up the portfolio. Right? So that old way would have taken me forever. However, I wasn't really thinking too much about that anymore. The reason why is because I got comfortable. I lost sight of what I was doing this stuff for. Why? Because what did I do? Like I'm now in the country clubs, I'm doing all this whining and dining and all this other stuff. And, you know, I got the prestige of a position, right? But then when the bank started getting funny with my money, they helped me to realize, hey, boy, we still control your future and your destiny. And so I had to wake up quick. And that happened after about my 8th, 9th year of working in the bank when they started playing with my bonuses. I got my money, but like I had to jump through all kinds of hoops. So I said, at that point, this will never happen again. I went back to my old non-traditional strategies. And then that next year, that year that I decided this will never happen again, I made $300K cash, part-time, with my business, with my real estate investments. I started doing some flips, but like not the flips y'all thinking about. Like I was doing some flips and it was kind of like wholesale flips, but wholesaling wasn't even a term when it came to real estate, and flipping, I don't even believe was a term at that point. And so I only had $100 into a deal, but I was making like, it took about 2 months for the deals to close, $100 to secure the deal. And I was making $25,000, $30,000 per deal every 2 to 3 months. I did roughly about 6 deals that year. No, I'm sorry. I did 11 deals that year. It initially, yeah, it took about 2 to 3 months, but after I did the first couple, then I just did multiples at a time. So I did roughly 10 or 11 deals that year, made $300,000. And I said bye-bye, signed my letter of resignation, I was gone. Let me tell you why. It was an easy decision because the time I was putting in that made me $300,000, I wasn't putting in 11 hours a day. I was barely putting in, I may have put in about 10 hours a week. I may have done that. Like, I think that's probably what I was doing. Roughly about 10 hours a week. I put in a few hours after I checked out, made $300,000 that year. So when I did the calculation, I'm like, the amount of hours that it's taking me to do these deals, like every time I walk into the bank, I'm losing about $2,000 an hour. So I got to get out of here so that I can focus on doing this full time. That's my mindset. So it's the same thing if I think about like the thing that my brother, I told you, is doing with his course, he's spending a few hours making a few $1,000s a month in his thing. And if he calculates the hours compared to what he's bringing in revenue, he would come to the same conclusion that how much money he's actually losing by going in every day. Because if he's making $3,000-$4,000 with just a couple hours a day, he's making 3 to 4. I think he said, I don't know if he said 3 to 4,000 a month or a week. I don't think it's a week. I think he said like 5 a month. But in any case, he's making significantly more per hour than he's making doing that. So all he's got to do is be able to put the time in and focus on that thing, and it'll get him the same result at scale. Because when it comes to the coaching, when you do it properly, it's not necessarily tied to the time that you put in. Like there's only so much of these you can make because there's only so much of this you have. It's only so many hours you have. Right. So that's the purpose of the cash flow. That's why Airbnb in the cash flow with the Airbnb cash flow got me out of the other thing. So what was the other thing? I'll tell you about it. So when I left corporate America, that's what I was doing. Within about a year or so after leaving corporate America, a year and a half, I think it was 2 years, I started making it. I hit my first $1 million a year. I think it took me just under 2 years. Because like I started ramping up. I went out and bought a big 8,000 square foot building, and I was going back and forth from one town to the next. I had hired like 50 people full time. Like I was serious, but I probably moved a little bit too fast on some things. And we were doing construction. I mean, we were doing rehab projects. I had totally changed the whole game. So we hit $1 million. I hit $1 million within about 2 years. And then when 2007, 2008 hit, we had the market crash. This was, I think in 2001 when I left the bank. I think I hit my first million in 2003, something like that. And then the market crash, I think in 2007. Market crash in 2007. Remember when all the banks were going out of business and the federal government had to step in and do all those TARP loans and stuff to save them? When the market crashed, they stopped lending money to people that were buying properties, and we had all these projects going, and like nobody was buying anything else, and I think in 2008, 2009, like we had enough reserves to hold us over, but then like I had lost about $1 million because I held on to everybody. Like it took me 2 years before I realized that this thing ain't turning back around no time soon. And so I had to start whittling down, but I had lost $1 million. So we eventually just shut down the business the way we were doing it. And then, we had some rentals, and then I did some homeless ministry stuff, and, anyway. So now I had just a rental portfolio. I wasn't doing all kinds of other things. And I was dealing with, traditional tenants and tenant drama and all this other stuff. Well, I knew that that wasn't really financial freedom. Like, it was freedom, it was financial independence, but it truly wasn't freedom, because I still had to do stuff every day. I still have people working for me, which I do today, but a lot different. Like, I make way more than I made in the real estate doing what we do with Airbnb. But I think I have, like, when I say people working for me, like on payroll, like I got internationals, so that's not technically payroll. And then we got some 1099s, a handful of those, but I have 0 employees, 0 employees. All right, so from a federal government perspective, I have 0 employees, right? And my freedom is significantly greater too, because the kind of revenue that we generate is not tied to time. Because if I got, whether we have 500 people get enrolled in our programs, or you got 5 people get enrolled, it doesn't really cost us more time, because there's a certain process that everybody goes through the same way, and we do it for the most part in group. I mean, I do some individual stuff, right? But it's not like, the majority of stuff is not that. So it doesn't matter if we got 500 or 5, if you have the framework properly. So that's how you're able to build wealth, when your revenue is not tied directly to your time. That's key. Now, why did I say all that? I said all that to get down to this simple little fact. The reason why the Airbnb portfolio was so key is because when you have $1 million a year in cash flow coming in, or even a few $100,000 a year in cash flow, that is going to eliminate the need to do this. So now you can focus on doing the other thing, whether it be continuing to grow your portfolio, or doing the thing in his case, which is continuing to build his academy. And that academy will generate millions and millions and millions of dollars for you. Like, we went from starting from scratch in our academy, to, it took us 18 months to hit our first $100,000 month. $100,000 month. And then we went up and up and up. We got up to about 200 grand. And then we kind of got stuck there for about a year. When I say stuck, because I thought we'd just be able to keep soaring through it, but we couldn't. We didn't. We got stuck there for about a year and a half. And then boom, we broke through again. And now we're I won't get into the numbers too much, but let's just say we're on track to do about $10 million. Okay. So, and why is that? Because it's about focus. And when I started my Airbnb portfolio, I wanted to grow that for the purposes of getting out of now my other thing that I was doing, which was my traditional real estate, dealing with tenant drama, rents, and, property management companies, no, not property management company, property inspectors, and all kinds of just stuff that comes with maintenance. And so the beauty of Airbnb is that you don't have all of that. And you have the cash flow, and it's automated. Like, my family and I, we have just under 100 listings between Florida and New York. We're about to ramp up and probably double or triple that, because we're moving out to different states, North Carolina, Texas, different parts of the country as well. And so as we're doing that, now we're growing our portfolios even more significantly. But I haven't been to one of my places in ages. And $1,923, that doesn't come in per week. That comes in we make more than that a day. A day. We make more than that a day. Airbnb is making electronic funds transfers in our accounts every day. Yesterday, was it yesterday? I think it was yesterday. I had $7,000 deposited into the account. Now, some of that was on the coaching side, some of that was on the Airbnb side, but like we make way more than that a day. And ain't no way in the world I'm doing anything close to this 11 hours a day. I'm up 11 hours a day because I get up early. This morning, I think I was up at 4:30. I went to bed early last night too. I went to bed at 8:30, 9 o'clock. But you know what we did yesterday? We had a guys' day. Like we had the whole theater to ourselves. My son and I, we took his boys, my 2 little grandkids, 2 and 3 years old, to Paw Patrol. Paw Patrol. I don't think I've ever seen a Paw Patrol, but they have a Paw Patrol movie. They wanted to see it. He wanted to just, he's been talking about it. He wanted to do it with them. He asked if I'd go, and it was wonderful. So we had the whole theater to ourselves. The whole theater. I got it on video. So cool. They were so like they sat wherever they wanted. It's great. Right? We could do those kinds of things. Now, don't get me wrong. When I say we had the whole theater to ourselves, I didn't go buy out the whole theater. Like I didn't have to do that. We don't need to do that. What happened? Because we're able to go whenever we want, most people that are able to do those things are going to movies, taking their kids to movies. They're doing it on the weekends or doing it. Like we did it at 4 o'clock yesterday. And when we got there, we knew like the place was just empty. It was empty. We could choose wherever we want. Beautiful. If I wanted to buy the theater out, I could have, but for what? Stupid. I don't need to do that. But because you have the freedom, so we did that, right? We're able to do those kinds of things. Like I'm here staying with them for the next month or so. Why? Because my daughter had a baby and I can do it. Like I don't have to ask anybody if I can go. We can go hang out with them, help them with the kids. Had to fly out to New York. So that's the reason why we do this, right? And but yeah, I got up this morning. It was 4:30. Got up, got into the Word. Had to do some tax stuff for the accountant. Some stuff I've been promising him. So I got to get that stuff, getting that stuff done. But I was also doing some other things for our Airbnb students. When some things happening with them, which is great. We're picking up grabbing some bundles of properties for a number of our students. And so and then I did that for a few hours. Had a meeting with one of our students today. What else? Hung out with the in-laws. My son's mother and father flew into town. So hung out with them a little bit. Took my wife out for a few minutes, a couple hours. That's it. Like that's how this stuff goes. But why? Like that just doesn't happen because we built the momentum. We used this time, we got it back and put it into the thing that generates big time momentum. So now it's not just $1 million. Now it's $10 million because we generate the momentum. So from a cash flow perspective, the way this stuff turns around for you is this. The way it turns around is, the way this turns around, I got to get one of those other boards. So the way this turns around is when you're generating this kind of money, $1 million a year, $2 million a year. We went from $1 million, then we switched from Airbnb from traditional real estate to now we built the Airbnb portfolio. The Airbnb portfolio generated enough cash flow for us in the first year where now I can start focusing less on the traditional real estate and then backing off of that, getting more of my time back. Because with Airbnb, like when we automate that stuff the way we automate it, now you you don't have, it's not directly related again to your time. So your return on investment, my return on investment here was much better than here, but now we're doing it again. So we 10x this. That was a 10x. And now we're doing it again. We're 10xing again. And the way you do that is you have to, you again, it's less time, but it's more systems, and it's also just about doing things slightly different. Like, it's not, I can get out of real estate, I'm still into rentals, I'm just doing it different. Right? And then you're able to 10x. And so with that 10x, the way although I'm not doing more is actually getting done. Why? Because you are able to take some of this, because there's enough profit in there. There's enough cash flow in there. And that's the key. Like, cash flow is king when it comes to this stuff. Cash flow gives us our time, so we don't have to think about, like, again, punching a clock, number one. You don't have to think about the bills. Like, cash flow is key. Like, how you're going to live your life, cash flow allows you to do that. But also cash flow allows you to reinvest in things that are going to give you a greater return. So the cash flow from Airbnb gave me the space to invest my time and some of the finances into resources that are going to help me to build the academy. Right? Some of that is people that I need help with, some tech stuff. I got to get the equipment. I gotta, just simple little things that you need. And then you scale back when you learn what's really working. Then you get rid of the stuff that isn't, and then you put your resources, the 80-20 rule, right? 20% of what you do is going to generate, and anything you do, look at it, it's generating 80% of your resource, of your results. So what you do is you reinvest this into people, into more systems, people and systems that can do what I did when I know what's giving us the return. And when you do that, now you have less time, but instead of, like, if I know that in order for me to, like last year, like we spent $500,000 on ads last year. Year before, roughly about the same, between Facebook and Google, about 500 grand on ads. So, like, we were able to reinvest those resources into things that were generating significant revenue for us. And then we get great people that can do the thing that manages those things. And they could do it really well. And if I'm making a couple $1 million and I got to pay out 200 of that so that I can get back 95% of my time, but yet also continue to grow my revenue, and then give me the space, not so I can just sit back and just do nothing. I can if I want, but that's not the plan, right? The plan is to now use that space that I just got back and look for the next 10x move inside of what I'm already doing. Like, understand what the next 10x move is inside of what we're already doing. Not trying to go start a new company, totally new business. No, there's just some things, because you're so deep in the woods, you can't really see. You get around people, like, you got to invest some of that money to get around people that are doing the thing, that are having success at 10x the level that you're having it at. And then you get to see how it relates to your business. And then when you do that, it's like down your brain starts to, like, because you're not so much in the woods, in the forest. And then when you get up at 4 or 5, 6 o'clock at night, in the morning, 4 or 5 in the morning, or when you're sitting on the beach or you're doing things, when you're in the shower, now your brain's going to be working and understanding how those things apply to what you're doing. And then your next 10x move takes place. Hopefully that makes sense. So when we talk about cash flow, the key for cash flow is freedom. So cash flow equals freedom. Cash flow equals gives you the ability to have some space. Gives you the time freedom. It gives you the ability to have resources, key resources. Right? Cash flow equals freedom, space, resources. And when you like, as smart as we all are, when you have the space, when you have the resources to do the thing, to put into your gift and talent, I definitely got to get me one of those digital whiteboards. Your gifts and your talents, what that's going to turn into is significant profits and more cash flow. Which equals more freedom, space, resources to do it again, do it again, do it again, do it again. So I can't. Are there questions? Hey, Deidre, what's your question? What's your question?
What to pay yourself, and how do you approach yourself to support your lifestyle?
All right. So the question is, where do you see those at? You can see the comments? Because I couldn't see them. All right. It would be so cool to be able to, if I sell my hair, like but when I do it on my phone, if I do it on my phone, I can't see it. So 4130. So when I log, so I'm just gonna see if I can see the question, because Deidre has a question. So I'm in YouTube now, your channel. Go to the live. All right. Oh, I see other people. Oh, yeah. Okay, cool. All right. That's cool. All right, wonderful. All right. So Deidre said, how do you know when you can and what to pay yourself? And how do you replace yourself to support your lifestyle? So that's a good question. How do you know when you can and what to pay yourself? So like, I'm trying to think of the best way to answer that, because it also depends on what you're doing, right? When you say what, I don't know what I want to erase. We'll just erase. All right. All right. So what can you pay yourself? So say, let's say, so how do you know what to pay yourself and when you can? Like, you can pay yourself. I guess the question is, so here's the thing. Like, one of the things you got to also understand is, like, I did $2 million last year. You know how much money I paid in taxes last year? I paid roughly around $20,000 in taxes. That's about it. No loopholes or nothing funky. Like, that's all we paid in taxes. Why? because what happens is, it depends on your business, right? It really depends on your business. But the way we're set up, the beauty of when it comes to real estate and with the Airbnb stuff, the way we do it, like there's so much, like think about it. I'm in one of our homes. I don't have an office. Like I don't have a building that I have to pay a mortgage on. Like I'm in one of our places. So in this place that we're in now, because I haven't bought a place here in Florida yet. So I'm in one of Chris's places. None of us have bought a place in Florida yet. We sold all of our stuff in New York. I still have one of my homes in New York, like our main home in New York. But we sold all of our traditional real estates. We sold all of our properties in New York, all of our traditional stuff. And we came here, we leased because we wanted to see, we only been here 18 months, but we want to see where we really want to be, right? So we're still getting familiar. And I know what I want, like what I believe I desire is to have a place on the water. So that's where I'm just, just seeing where everybody's settling in at and how everything's doing. And we're just kind of just waiting for the time to make that move. We got kids having babies and things, so we want to be close enough and all that. So in any case, but with Airbnb, think about this for a second. And again, from an accounting perspective, you guys all know, like as I mentioned, like we did a thing yesterday with my grandkids. Do you know what else? Also, what we did with them? We also took some video and some content while we were at the movies that you guys will see. So guess what? That movie thing paid for itself. A lot of times you guys see me on the beach or you see me on boats and yachts and things like that I paid for. Guess what? That stuff pays for itself. I get to write it off because I'm doing business on that yacht or on that boat. I'm doing business on that jet. I'm doing business in this place, my vehicle. Like I don't really do anything other than business and or with the family. And when I'm doing stuff, a lot of times with the family, I'm creating content. In many cases, you see all the content that we have out there. It's documenting our life. So that's how if that's a marketing expense, you get to write that stuff off. Much of it. So technically, you really are paying yourself that way. Now, your account doesn't mean your account doesn't grow, but those are not expenses that others would see as like, normally, if that wasn't the case, that would just be an expense that takes away from your ability to have. Like the government is allowing you to do that when you do it properly. Talk to your accountant. But when you do that properly, the government allows you to write that off against the money that you made. So it's not technically an expense. It is, like it's what you would have to pay anyway. But now this is actually how you end up paying a lot less in taxes. So to answer your question, it really depends on how you structure, because you look at, I'm trying to think, I don't even know how much I paid myself last year, honestly. And my accountant, now that we're moving into a whole nother bracket, that's one of the things we're going to be talking about in the next month or two before the year ends, as like how I really need to structure it at the level that we're at now. But I mean, making a couple $1 million a year, it's not that serious. Making a few $100,000 a year is definitely not that serious as long as you ain't doing nothing stupid. Like you ain't doing stupid stuff, because that's the last thing you want is the IRS coming after you. All right, so you don't want to be doing stupid stuff, but like it ain't that serious. You don't have to have all these crazy structures in place. In fact, like I have an S corp, but my S corp is not like up until a year or so ago, we weren't even, and I don't even really do a whole lot inside of the S corp. Like most of that stuff has just been right in our personal, just a pass through. Like Airbnbs, our students, when they set those up, they don't even have LLCs or anything like that. Because like it's just a pass through. When you do that properly, again, you get a lot of those expenses are written off. So you don't have to go out and get offices and things like that. And so how and when, I think it's really just a matter of understanding the cash flow. So if, say for instance, you're making, so think about this. You got two, well, I guess this is how I would look at it. The way you need to look at it is, how much do you need to live? So I just gave you guys a bunch of background information. Maybe it was helpful, maybe it wasn't. I think it was. But to answer your question now, Deidre, like how much do you really need to live? That's really the question. And then you back into that. Like, because being financially independent and financially free is not wealth. But that's what you need to get to wealth fast. Have the independence and the freedom financially so that you can put your time and your resources into the right thing to scale quickly. So that's why cash flow is so important. That creates financial independence and freedom. So the key is, how do you get, like, what is the number you have to, that you need in order to have a lifestyle that's, that gives you freedom? Like that you can, that you could be okay with for now. Not wealthy, but okay while you're building. And so personally, like the way we got up to, let me see the other part of your question, because like I don't know if that doesn't, and how do you replace yourself? That's easy to support your life. So that part is easy. I'll give you that. So, but let's say, again, part of that first part of that question is, if you have, like the way we replaced ourselves from the real estate side of things, like when I left corporate America and I made that $300,000, I did not pay myself. Like I did, we did some things, but I don't need a whole lot. I don't have like a lavish lifestyle. Like I enjoy hanging out on the boats, and I enjoy hanging out, on the yachts, and I enjoy hanging out on, you guys can let Lisa in if you can see her. I think she's trying to get in. Like I enjoy hanging out with our students and things. I get to write that stuff off. So when you say, how much do I pay myself? Like, you don't see me, I personally don't have the desire to have a Rolls Royce. So like, I don't have that. Now, when I do have the desire to have the jets, and I don't have a desire to own a yacht, but have access to the yacht and control over the yacht. I enjoy doing those things. But any of those things that you do, and this is how the wealthy do it. Like I've been around so many of those that have been in the deck of millionaire status way longer than I've been in that status. And what they do is they learn how to make those things pay for themselves. That's the key. I learned that stuff, like these big mansions and all this stuff, like they learn how to make these things pay for themselves. So if you're buying a car, if you're buying a house and you're spending all this money on all these things and you got to pay for them with cash out of your pocket, that creates a problem. But if you create, if they're coming out of things like, so if they're being created by the things that you're doing every day, and when you do them, they're actually paying you back too. Now it's a beautiful thing because it's endless as to how much you can do and have. So when I got into when I left corporate America, that $300,000 that we made, that I made that year, I didn't go and spend all that and say, oh, I'm paying myself $300. I know I did something. I know I treated the family, we did things. But what I did was I reinvested the money into more places and more resources. Because I knew that if I reinvest the money, it's going to give me a greater return. More, remember what I said, cash flow. Cash flow equals freedom, space, resources to be able to pour into your gifts and talents, to give you more profit and more cash flow. And if you got more profit and more cash flow, what do you have? More freedom, space, resources to pour into your gifts and your talents, to give you more profit and more cash flow. It's a cycle. Like it's a cycle. It just, so when you do that, like, and what I like to call it is critical mass. So what I did was when it came to the real estate side, when I left corporate America, like I was reinvesting, and to the point where we had roughly about $500,000, I think it was that much, always in the market that we never took it out. And when I did a deal, basically, if I had $25,000 invested and I made 50, then with critical mass was that $500,000. If I had 25 invested, then what I made sure I did was I just put the 25 back, and then it left me with 25 that I could either do what with? I could either spend, save, or reinvest if I want. So I could spend, save, or reinvest. But if I'm at critical mass, I knew that that was a number for me that made sense. Because at $500,000, as long as I'm keeping that in the market, always buying and selling, then I got more than enough that's going to generate for us, $1 million to $2 million a year. That was my critical mass then. Today, I look at it a little bit different, because the cash flow is moving so fast. That cash flow didn't move so fast then. Like that was kind of slow money to me, the way it is now. Because now this cash flow coming in every day, like all day long, there's money coming in. And I already but I had to make some significant investments this year in order to hit that $10 million, to get to that point where it created more cash flow, created more profit, created more freedom. Well, I'm sorry, created more cash flow, which created more freedom, which created more space, resources to pour into my gifts and talents, that created more profit and more cash flow. So like this year, I think, gosh, this year, I think we we spent, like I stopped spending money on ads, but that was how we were generating our revenue. But we spent probably $500,000, roughly about $500,000 we invested just to be around people, the right people that could help me to understand some things at a different level. Just to understand some things at a different level. So I'm practicing what I preach. I'm telling you this stuff on purpose because that's what I did. And then after, as I said, I was telling you earlier, after, you know, a few months of that and understanding some things, then while I'm on the beach running, while I'm with my wife chilling, while I'm in the shower washing, while I'm sitting and having, while I'm praying, while I'm meditating, like now I'm seeing how that stuff fits into my business, how to implement, how to make the adjustments, and boom, the 10X happened. So how to replace yourself? So how to pay yourself? You got to understand what it's gonna like. What do you need to live off of, and really what your goal is? And then what your goal is, when you understand how much you need to live off of, if that number is $100,000 a year that you can live, then that means $10,000. Like, what is that $100,000 a year? Think about that for a second. So if you need $100,000 to live, if you need $100,000 to live, that's again $9,000, $9,800 a month or something like that. We already said that's $1,900. $100,000 is $1,900. $1,923 a week. That's $100,000 a year. $9,800 per month. Like 1,923 per week. So check this out. Equals 100,000. Something like that. So check this out though. If that's what you need, 100K to live. If you need 100K to live, that's based on the lifestyle that you're living now. If you're working and going back and forth and doing all these things, but if you replace that job, like if you're replacing that job, then gosh, DJ, you're making me think about multiple things here, because I'm just gonna use $100,000. All right. So if you're replacing that job, remember what I told you. If you replace that job, now a lot of the things that you did to live, you don't have to do anymore, like the commute. And then when you do drive, what are you driving for? You're driving for you and your business. So when you were driving to work, you didn't get paid for that. But now you actually get paid for driving to work. Like if your business is in your home and that's your core business, that's where your main source of revenue comes from, your office in your home, then there's stuff that you can write off from your home. If you got a bunch of Airbnbs, right, and you're paying rent on those Airbnbs, even though that's an expense, it's also a write-off. It's a write-off against, along with the utilities, along with the maintenance, along with the phones, because your computers, you're communicating. So all these things that used to be expenses that came out of your paycheck, now they're still expenses, but they're actually write-offs against your income. So like I don't know if you guys are seeing like if you're seeing where I'm going with that.
Deidre asked to clarify in the chat if she's understanding correctly.
Yeah. Okay, so moral of the story is don't don't quit your job until you have double in cash flow than what you need. One half of the cash flow to maintain current obligations and the other half to reinvest in the business. Don't quit your job until you have double the cash flow. So I don't know, honestly. I can't really say that, because think about this for just a second. This is what I was thinking about when I said you're making me think about multiple things. I didn't even see that question, but I kind of know your situation a little bit. So imagine this. Imagine if you only need $100,000 to live off, right? But you're making $300,000 a year, like with your job. Or if you need $100,000 a year to live off of, and you have the ability, so even with your example, if you have the ability to double that and make 200K, how can you do that? Like, if you're making 300, how can you quickly get to 200 outside of your job? Well, one of the things you could do is you can get access to funding, or be very aggressive in reinvesting your excess into the things that are going to help generate this 200,000 a year, which is what, about 18,000 per month. This is where people get scared. People get scared because part of it is because we've been trained so long to feel like our job is our security. That's hogwash. It's hogwash. You don't know when that company could fail. You don't know when something could change inside of that company and they just decide to go in a different direction and they don't need you anymore. So it ain't really security. It's a false sense of security. Kind of like when I used to fly planes. Going down the runway and then going liftoff. Like when I was learning how to fly planes, that was so scary for me. Like liftoff, you got to hit 100, then you pull that thing up and you feel everything going up in the air. Like that was scary. But I knew I was the one in control. Like that was in the beginning. And I never ended up getting a pilot's license because 9/11 happened and then they shut everything down. But when I was learning, and then I never went back. But when I was learning to do it, like that was like, I looked at that and I go, okay, at least I know I'm in control. And when you're flying, same thing. Like it wasn't like flying, once you get up in the air, it's just smooth sailing. And then you just got to read your monitors and your gauges and make sure you know where how everything's going with the checking on the different the panels and making sure everything's good. And then landing, you gotta land too. Like that's another scary thing when you're learning how to fly. But once you get good at it, just like driving, like in the beginning when you start driving, it was a little scary. I used to swear I did not want a fast car because I was so scared in the beginning when I was driving. And now once I got used to it, it's like, man, this is as fast as it can go. Like, but think about this, when you're flying in a jet, like you got a pilot up there that has experience. But guess what happens if that plane or something happens to that pilot? Well, if something happens to the pilot, you can't take over. That's definitely not going to happen in most cases. But also, if something happens to the plane and the pilot can't deal with it, or happens to the pilot, by the time you figure it out, it's also going to be too late. So it's a false sense of security, right? So the question becomes this: how quickly And how much do you really trust in your ability to use your gifts and your talents as making those other companies millions and millions of dollars, to be able to at least steer your own boat and your own ship with like your Airbnb portfolio. Like you have the ability to build, you're going to have $1 million portfolio in 3 months, 3 to 6 months. Well, do you have to wait to get to $1 million to leave? Do you have to wait? Like, what do you need? Like, if you don't have to wait to replace your income. You don't have to do that if that's your income. You don't have to wait to replace your income if that's your income. But if you got access to resources that allows you to get there quick, then, like as you're seeing these electronic funds transfers happening in Airbnb every day, that can give you enough sense of security to know that, wow, this thing really works. The only thing is, you just haven't been doing it long enough. You just haven't been doing it long, should I say, not long enough, but long. So no, I'm not saying wait till you got 2 to 3 times till you're yeah, you can, but you might think that that's directly related to time, and that's not really directly related to time. It's really more directly related to resource, because we know, like today we were having a conversation about how one of our Wealth Airbnb students, they're getting ready to pick up a package of 8 places from us. Now, a package of 8 is going to put them in the range of about $240,000 to $300,000 a year in cash flow. So the same way when you got started with your first Airbnb place, you got your first place pretty quickly. I mean, it's cool, it's nice, it's exciting, but it ain't nothing that you're going to be able to retire off of. But if you started with that same sense of like intention, and you did that with 6 places or 8 places, now guess what? You got a portfolio that's going to have so much momentum and so much cash flow. Even when some things are down, some things are up, it's going to have so much momentum and so much cash flow that now you won't have to come out of your pocket again. That's going to be the critical mass, anywhere from about 6 to 8 places, which equals anywhere from 18 to 32 listings, which equals anywhere from 240,000, because it's anywhere from 30, so sorry, 180,000 to 40, so anywhere from 30 to 40,000 in cash flow per property, so to 320,000 in cash flow a year. You won't have to come out of your pocket ever again. That's your critical mass when it comes to this stuff. It's going to be your critical mass because there's more than enough cash flow to pay yourself. There's more than enough cash flow to pay for resources, automation, and resources is not just not just technology, but also people when you do it right. And it's also enough resources to reinvest and pick up more properties. So your critical mass that can get you there pretty quickly is 6 to 8 places. And then and that could happen, literally, that could actually happen almost overnight. It's just a matter of how you get there. And the way you get there is, there's funding sources that, that you can access. There's, people have 401ks, people have, but we also have special funding sources, as you know, that allow you to be able to do that if in fact you don't have your own capital to do all of that. And typically it's roughly anywhere, on average, you can expect to spend on average about $10,000 per place. So that the people that we're talking, I was just telling you about, that's picking up this portfolio of 8 places from us, it's only costing them to pick it up about 80 grand. Now, that's because they're also part of they're inside of our Wealth B&B program. So now, like, they're not going to wait and do it in 1s and 2s. They just want to do it all together and say, okay, what's it going to cost on average? And like on average, because some's going to be maybe 8, first month's rent, security deposit, furnishing, that stuff. Then you got, some will be, depends on what first month's rent, security deposit is. Some will be 10, some might be 12, but on average, it'd be about 10 per place. Now you got 8 places that generate $320,000, anywhere from 8 places that's generating anywhere from $240,000 to $320,000. When you do that, now you don't need to put in 10, 12 hours for someone. Now you can chill. Does that, I don't know if that answers your question. And then finding someone to replace you, like that part is, as I said, is simple. There are some things that like you're gonna, well, you have a much greater benefit than I have when I got going, because I didn't have someone that was gonna take everything over for me and do all of that, right? So you guys, like, when in Wealth B, you guys actually have that, so you don't have to think about it. But as you're looking to build your academy, like if you're in the VIP program, you're building your academy now, your focus is going to be more on the framework of how to do it, because we also build the academy for you as well, and then we partner together with you so that the same framework that we have, we're going to be implementing for you to generate $1 million on that side as well. You don't have to learn this stuff from scratch. You're going to be learning a lot, but you get supercharged, just like the thing that I gave you with the access to some of our other inner circle partners. You're getting access to some of those things so that you will supercharge your learning, as well as the stuff we do inside of our VIP days in the yachts, where we're all coming together and that stuff. So having access to the people, the resources, and the knowledge, just those kinds of connections will also quickly allow you to scale and begin generating revenue relatively quickly. Like in most people's cases, like very fast, like almost light speed. From my perspective, it's just normal. So let me see. I'm gonna look. I gotta keep my eye on. I know I'm already over. So what's her name? Oh, so Lisa said I was like, who is this Danny Duncan neighbor kid? That's a good, I like that, Lisa. That's smart. Service is bad, kicked her out of Zoom. So, all right. So Deidre, I don't know if that was helpful. If anybody else has any questions, I just feel like I rambled a lot, honestly. But like that's like from a millionaire mindset perspective, like that's like I probably could have said all of that in a lot less words. But that's really how we look at it. And again, it is about cash flow. Cash flow is the key piece, and being able to get the cash flow fast, make the cash flow happen fast, is how you're able to now no longer have to focus on or be concerned about bills or debt or growth or living or resources, because you got the cash flow that solves that. And then you can now put your time and your resources into, you got the time and the space to be able to to pick up the resources, to understand what resources you need. Like you won't learn to understand them by yourself. There's going to be others that you, again, who you surround yourself with that are going to help you to do that, so that now you don't really have to guess. And when you do that properly, now you're going to know where to put your resources properly. The best place to put your resources to get the greatest return, like the way we do it with Airbnb, there's two key pieces that give you 95% of your time back. First piece is what? Cleaning. If you get rid of your cleaning, meaning someone else is doing it, now you got at least 50% of your time back. Why? And the reason why that's probably the first thing that has to go is because the other piece that gives you back the other 40% of your time is guest communication. So with the reason why the cleaning is so important is because if you get rid of the cleaning side and you got 10 places or 4 places or 5 places, it doesn't matter where you are in the world. Like people are going to be able to still check in and check out, and you're going to get electronic funds transfers into your account every day. It's going to operate. You just have to manage the cleaning process and have the right cleaners in place, right? And then you're still doing guest communication, but you can do guest communications from anywhere in the world, right? So you need a good cleaner or good cleaners, right? If you can, once you eliminate that piece, and then you eliminate, and then you have the maintenance, but we're not going to talk about that. But then you eliminate the guest communication side. Now you got 95% of your time back when it comes to Airbnb, because you don't have to now even communicate with guests. You can, now you're free. You got cash flow, and you don't need to give up all your money to do that. Remember, who pays for cleaners? Not you, the guest does. What you charge per night does not include the cleaning fee. The cleaning fee is a separate thing that we're not trying to necessarily make a profit off of. We just want to pay for our cleaners, so we're not coming out of our pocket. That's it. So now your guests are actually paying for the cleaners. And then you are actually going to pay for someone to do guest communication or software to make it a lot simpler. That's the first investment. That's how we do it. But you don't even have to think about that because you're in Welcome B. You don't have to do anything. All right. So when you can eliminate those two things, you got 95% of your time back. 95% of your time back. Now, what can you focus that time on? One or two things. Focus that time on getting more in your portfolio, which is what I want to talk about next. And you guys should probably jump into Zoom so we can get into that, because that's not going to be something I'm going to go on to in YouTube. I'm going to just wrap up YouTube. But we'll get into that for those of us students who have who I want to talk about, how to ramp up. Jump into Zoom so we can get into that. And if you don't have the link, someone send it to you. Tina or April, could you actually send them the link to the Zoom so they can jump in? And then we'll spend a half an hour going through some of that stuff. We'll wrap up here. But those are the things. And when you can do that, when you can eliminate your time to put into the thing that's going to allow you to continue to scale, you can either put it into Airbnb, growing your portfolio, or put it into your program. That's going to actually 10x what you make on the Airbnb side. Right. So that's and so that's how you determine where you're going to replace yourself with, what's taking up the majority of your time. And they're kind of low, like what you have the ability to pay someone based on how much you have the ability to generate when that's how I do it. I go, okay, like this is really a $5 or $10 an hour job. Right? This is a $3, $4, $5, $6, $7, $8, $9, $10 an hour job. Well, guess what? Like I make over $5,000 an hour. I make over $5,000 an hour for consultation. So I don't really want to do anything that's not paying me more than $5,000 an hour. And if I am, then now I'm going slow. I'm slowing myself down. I got to pay somebody to do this stuff. Just like when I was walking to the bank, I was losing $2,000 an hour every time I walked into the bank. I got to get out of here. So you have to start getting into understanding and seeing that type of calculation. And when you get there fast, then like you can make those decisions quickly because they're just smart decisions now. They're no-brainers. But when you're getting there slow, it's turbulent because you see a lot of ups and downs because you got a little cash flow here, a little cash flow there. But when you got a bunch of cash flow, you're not seeing a lot of ups and downs. It's more like this. Because when some things are up, some things might be down. When some things are down, some things are up. So it's still just like this. And then when everything's up, it's way up. Very slim chance that everything's down at the same time. So, all right. All right, I'm done rambling. So that's the Zoom link for any of y'all. We'll wait a few more minutes and then fervor. He just said fervor. Yeah, that was a good word for it too. It wasn't for the exact word that I was looking for. The fervor it could explain it. But really just being diligent with big and with a focused intent. Fervor. It's a good word. All right. So is there anyone else that has any other questions? All right. So we're going to wrap up here then, and we're going to get into some things on our private. For everybody here that's on YouTube, thanks for joining us, and we will see you. Join us. We're going to be on Monday morning. We'll also be. We'll let you know, but it's Monday morning. So our calendar now is Monday morning. I believe that's 9 a.m. Wednesday morning is the business Bible study. We did it yesterday, and then Thursday at 6 p.m. But actually next week we'll still do the same thing, but our challenge actually starts next week too. So for those of you who are not in our challenge, who haven't gotten enrolled in the challenge, for those that are joining this video that are not part of Wealth BNB, and you haven't, you don't know or may not be aware of the challenge. If you're interested, and if your desire is to be able to have family financial freedom, so that you can, same thing, escape the 9 to 5, so that you have the ability to get out of the rat race, begin building that 5, 6, 7 figure per year portfolio, so that again you can begin building that generational wealth, so that you can build that legacy with your kids and your grandkids, so that you can be more of a blessing to your church and your community, so you can help family members who really need it. You can travel more and take those gifts and those passions that we talked about here, those talents that you've been blessed with, that your kids have been blessed with. If that's something that you desire to have, then join the challenge. I'm going to spend 4 days with you, 2 hours a day. I spend that time helping you to get started immediately, have a transformation immediately, and then so that you now have the ability to build on that and get and then by the time we're done, what's going to happen is you're already going to have some momentum, but I'm actually evaluating you as well, believe it or not. So I'm evaluating you to see how much I really can help you. And if I believe I can, I'm going to give you an invitation into our academy, into our program. And everyone doesn't get that invitation, but I'll give you one if I believe I can help you and I think it's a great fit. And then at that point, then you'll really be able to soar. So join the challenge. You should be able to see one of the links inside of our Instagram channel, inside of the Zoom, inside of this video should be in the description as well. And I'll see you next week. All right. So